How everybody doing? We are here on Tuesday night. The final cuts have been announced around the NFL. Bills got their roster down to 53 tonight. And look, to be fair, we spent a lot of the preseason and the offseason talking about, wow, look at all these good players the Bills have. It's going to be so hard to figure out who can stay and who can go. And, over the last week and a half, I've kind of felt like this roster has been one of the easier ones to pare down. Not because guys aren't good. The Bills still had really good players that, maybe not really good, good players that they couldn't keep. Tyrell Adams had a real good year with the Texans last year, and he was cut early. I like Joe Giles Harris a lot. If you watch BKL, Buffalo Kickoff Live, you know my love for that guy. Daryl Johnson was traded away, another guy who's had a really good preseason. Isaiah Hodgins was a promising young guy over the last 2 years. He didn't stay. But by the time we got to this point where the Bills had to make their call on who to keep and who to let go, there really wasn't much controversy. I mean, the two quarterbacks were obvious. It was clear Jake Fromm didn't belong on this roster, and Davis Webb was a glorified coach. The offensive line was easy. I can't remember a year where picking the offensive linemen who were going to make the team was easier than this season. At wide receiver, Marquez Stevenson was not going to be on this roster 3 weeks ago. But, you make a big catch in a preseason game, then you run a punt back for a touchdown in another one, and then even though he didn't do anything spectacular against the Packers, still had that pretty solid punt return. So I don't know. I will tell you, Marquez Stevenson does not belong on this roster from what I've seen in practice. Not in the games, but over at the Bills practice facility in Orchard Park. But what he's done in the games made him uncuttable. Because if you let him go, someone's going to look at a guy who can run a punt back for a touchdown and say, you know what, I'll take a shot on him. So the Bills were never going to pass him through waivers. And maybe that becomes a problem, because now you've got an extra roster spot that Stevenson has to occupy in order to keep him away from everybody else in the league. And maybe they give him a shot to run back kicks, but I don't think so. He's been a train wreck in practice, maybe a little bit above that. So that was a surprise, but by the time you got to today, there's no shock there that Marquez Stevenson made the team. Jay Kumaro, obvious, who's going to make the team. Reggie Gilliam, done too many good things, both in practice and in preseason. He was going to make the team. The Bills were keeping 6 defensive ends. They were keeping 5 tackles. The only guy who got cut, maybe 2 guys, who got cut, who you look at and kind of think, I don't know about that. Tight end Jacob Hollister, and I'll come back to that in a minute, and safety Josh Thomas. Now, Josh Thomas has not looked like a guy who belongs among the best 53 during camp, but he was another guy who was pretty good in the preseason game. So, a little bit of a question there about whether or not you could pass him through waivers, but I think end of the day, the Bills will A, get him on the practice squad, and B, probably not mind if someone happens to claim him. Hollister is a little unusual in that he's a veteran who's been around at a position where the Bills, frankly, are not very good at all. Dawson Knox is your number one. He's still had the same case of the drops he's had his entire career. This was throughout camp. Day 1 of camp, he dropped the ball and had enough sprinkled throughout to where it doesn't look like anything has changed with Knox. And then after that, you got Tommy Sweeney, who can't go 2 months without getting hurt or having some sort of issue. I know I don't want to, kind of make fun of COVID, which is what happened to him last year, but unfortunately the guy's had a injury/sickness marred career. So the Bills don't have much at tight end. And for whatever you think of Hollister, and he hasn't been great in camp, you still would figure a guy like that can be of some use to the Bills. And he may come back. The Bills cut Reed Ferguson, and I've been told, and a couple other reporters have been told, that he will be back probably tomorrow on the roster. And since I got the internet here, which is unlimited time for everything, I'll explain to you the whole details about how this works. Little tangent. Players who are cut today, if they have less than 4 years of service time, so 4 years in the league, they go to waivers. And any team in the league can claim them. So Josh Thomas, for example. He is right now on waivers. So if any team in the league wants him, they can put a waiver claim in on him. And the way waivers work is that the team with the worst record gets first choice. Now, everybody's 0-0 right now, right? So you go back to last year. Who was the worst team in last year's season? Well, who had the number 1 pick in the draft? It was the Jacksonville Jaguars. So anybody who goes on waivers, the Jaguars can claim them. This is not like your fantasy draft. Most fantasy drafts or fantasy leagues, if you got the number one waiver priority and you claim a guy, you go to the bottom. No. The Jaguars could claim 53 guys off of waivers today if they wanted to, and that would be their brand new team. And the old team, so when the Bills cut Josh Thomas, if someone else claims him, the Bills can't get him back. There's no, we want to make a different deal. No. Josh Thomas goes to the new team, and that is that. Players who have had at least 4 years in the league, they don't go to waivers. They become free agents, which means they can do whatever the bleep they want. So a guy like Reed Ferguson or Jacob Hollister, who have been in the NFL 5 and 4 years respectively, if the Bills want to say to them, look, we want to hold on to one of our younger guys, say Dane Jackson or Marquez Stevenson, we don't have room to do that right this second because we also want to keep a guy like Harrison Phillips, who's probably going to go on injured reserve, or Isaiah McKenzie, who might go on injured reserve. We need to keep them too. Because in the same way Josh Thomas would go on waivers, so would Harrison Phillips and Isaiah McKenzie. So you say to Reed Ferguson, look, we got to cut you right now. We're going to sign you back tomorrow after we keep the 53 other guys and all the young guys we want to keep. Then we'll put a couple guys in injured reserve, opens up a roster spot, then we can bring you back. Now, for sure, when you go on IR, you got to be off the team you got to be off the roster for 3 weeks. When they want to bring back Harrison Phillips or whoever, then someone else has to get cut. But at least then you have 3 more weeks. Like, for example, the Bills might put Marquez Stevenson out there to run back kicks. And then if he looks as terrible running back kicks in the regular season as he did in training camp, well, then in 3 weeks you cut him, you bring Harrison Phillips back, you're fine. It just gives the Bills more options. So, going back to cuts, Reed Ferguson was cut today. He's coming back tomorrow. Jacob Hollister could be back tomorrow simply because the Bills don't have anybody who's played tight end in the NFL before in a regular season game other than Dawson Knox. They have Dawson, they have Knox, they have Sweeney, and whatever you want to call Reggie Gilliam. So it wouldn't stun me if Hollister's back tomorrow. But this is the extent of the drama today. Jake Kumaro made the team. Yay! Davis Webb and Jake Fromm got cut. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both goes back to the practice squad. If it were me, I'd be done with Jake Fromm. I've seen enough to know this guy's got no future in the NFL, not even as a backup, in my opinion. Webb, however, is so valuable in other ways, they're going to try and bring him back to the practice squad and probably succeed. But that's it. That's it. This has been an easy call. I thought maybe Taiwan Jones might get cut, but when you let go of Daryl Johnson, Daryl Johnson's a core special teamer. Taiwan Jones is a core special teamer. You trade Daryl Johnson, you open up space for Jones. So that didn't surprise me at all. Easy assembling of a 53-man roster this year. Surprisingly easy, but easy. What do you guys got here? Dan Walker, what's up? Danelle Evans, how you doing? Tyler Kinney, I was with you a little bit on Wild Goose. He was very active in training camp practices, but I got to say, wasn't very good at all against the Lions and very iffy against the Packers. So I can understand Wild Goose being a guy who gets cut. I think he comes back to the practice squad and certainly still has a future with this team, just not on the 53-man roster right now. Greg Smith. Are 6 defensive ends overkill? Are they going to redshirt Rousseau? Second question first, no. Rousseau is playing this year. They love him. He's been being used. I mean, you saw in the last couple games, he's the first defensive end out there. When they played the Packers and played the starters, it was Rousseau on one side with Jerry Hughes. They love Rousseau. And he's shown promise, don't get me wrong. I'm not as high on him as many other media are. I haven't seen a lot from him in training camp, but he's certainly done enough in the preseason games to where he belongs on the field. I don't know if you want to start. It really doesn't matter with McDermott because he's going to rotate defensive ends in and out anyway. As for your first question, 6 defensive ends. In general, yes, it is absolutely overkill. But Bills are in a weird spot. They just drafted 2 guys this year. They drafted a guy last year. They love F.A. Obata. They've been talking about F.A. Obata since they signed him in March. And then you got Jerry Hughes, who's the best defensive end you have on the team. You're not cutting him. And Mario Addison, who's the only other guy on the team that you really trust right now. These are the 4 guys. They got promise, but they haven't done anything in the league. So I think the Bills were in a spot where they had to keep 6. And then they're keeping 5 defensive tackles right now, too. We expect Phillips to go on IR, so that'll make it 4, and 4 makes sense. But, yeah, I mean, it's 6 overkill it is. The good news is that a lot of these guys can play tackle as well. Basham, Obata, maybe even Epinesa. So you've got some versatility there. But I think in a perfect world, if you gave Sean McDermott truth serum, he'd tell you he doesn't want to keep 6 defensive ends. This year they will, and we'll see how it goes. Don't be surprised, by the way, if Boogie Basham is inactive for some of these games, especially early in the season, because he's had a pretty rough camp so far, especially for a second rounder. Yeah, Danelle, I saw the Cam Newton thing today. Crazy for sure. Yes, John Ayala and Danelle talking about the same thing. Yeah, the Cam Newton release for the Patriots was a headline grabber for sure. But you start to think about it a little bit. Mac Jones has been pretty good in the preseason. So I'm not really that stunned New England went to him to be the starter. And once Mac Jones is the starter, you don't really need or even want to have Cam Newton around as the backup. Is Cam Newton going to be a good backup? Maybe, but probably not. And, to continue that point, Cam Newton probably doesn't want to even be a backup. So let him go. You already got Brian Hoyer in New England. He can be your veteran backup guy. Let Cam go and do whatever he wants. Let Mac Jones grow and not have to worry about Cam looking over his shoulder. So I think when you think about it, the move made sense, even if it was certainly an eyebrow raiser when it happened today. John Ayala, it's funny. I can't wait for the regular season to start. But for someone who works in this, and the last month it's crazy, and a lot of driving to and from Buffalo, a lot of long days. I am happy that we don't have any games this week. Take a little breather, get ready, and then I'll certainly be fired up next week when we get into getting ready for game number 1. Yeah, and John Ayala, you're right. Cam Newton was bad last year. It's another thing, too. A lot of people today talking about, I told you so on Mac Jones. Mac Jones has been good, don't get me wrong. But to be the number 1 guy for the Patriots, all he had to do was be better than Cam Newton. That ain't a high bar, everybody. So credit to Mac Jones there, but I'm not, walking in the season afraid of the Patriots because Mac Jones looked good. Greg Rowe, do I think a lack of a vaccine cut someone? I think so. In the whole league, you're talking about 32 teams, everybody had to cut about 30 players today. It's about 600 guys. 600 guys that got cut today. Of all those guys, did vaccination play a role in some of them? I think so. Urban Meyer, the head coach of the Jaguars, even said as much. So I would say the answer to that is probably yes. Greg Gotham-Smith, anyone released I'd like to see the Bills pick up? That's a good question. I don't know about a player. I'd have to, look through lists and see if there's anybody out there I liked. But position-wise, I would absolutely be checking the tight end waiver wire. Because like I said, Dawson Knox is the best the Bills have, and he is inconsistent at best right now. So if you can find someone that can provide quality depth, I would absolutely be going there. I mean, you saw the Jets, they traded Chris Herndon, who's been nothing in this league the last 2 years, to Minnesota and got a 4th-round pick for him. I mean, Daryl Johnson can play in this league, and the Bills got a 6th. He can, Daryl Johnson's versatile. Bills got a 6th for him. Shaq Lawson, is a pass rusher. A lot of the other trades today were 6th, 7th rounders. The Jets got a 4 for Chris Herndon. So tight end seems to be a valuable piece of real estate or asset, I think is the best way to put it. If the Bills could find someone in that spot, that's what I'd be looking for. Yeah. John Allen, Cam just wasn't good last year, bottom line. Danelle, I think you might be right about Mac Jones there. He's a perfect quarterback for Bill Belichick. We will see, though. All right, thanks for checking in, guys. I'm out. Next time I talk to you will be next week. Regular season. Get ready for a real game. Can't wait. See you.